Welcome to Fantasy Football Hub. Today I'm joined by BigManBakar's to preview the upcoming Game Week 35. Now at the time of recording there is still one fixture to be played in Game Week 34 and Bakar has 6 players to go in that fixture. It's a tiny red arrow so far, but it looks like it may well be a green. Chat to us, Bakar. How's the Game Week been so far?
Hi Jack, thanks for having me. Hello and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. It's been a good week, I would say, even though I'm on a slight red arrow. Overall, I'm on 99 points. I took an 8-point hit, so a net score of 91 points. I mean, given the fact that I'm on an 8-point hit, a very small red with 6 players to go is actually pretty good, considering the fact that I've done really well in the previous few weeks. So I was sort of looking at this week as a damage limitation week anyway. And if I get anything from Fernandez in particular tonight, that would be awesome, and that would hopefully help me to green arrow.
Yeah, to be fair, a green arrow looks inevitable, but I mean we've said that before, and it hasn't paid dividends. But you never know. I mean, those 6 players are very good, and they all have full potential. So let's just wait and see what happens.
But there again, last night I was thinking to myself, I have Ederson left to play, who's the most nailed pick in the City defense, and then he didn't show up. So let's hold our horses and let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Me too. Imagine just none of the players play. Unbelievable. I was actually thinking about this earlier. Wouldn't it be great if we just have a normal season where there aren't loads of doubles and loads of single? It's crazy. And then I was thinking, actually, to be fair, back in the day, we've had entire fixtures cancelled. Imagine if this entire fixture got cancelled. It could be worse. Nonetheless, let's get into your team for the upcoming week. And I want to just get straight into your thoughts with transfers. What are you thinking?
It's a bit of a tricky week to decide because a lot of what we do depends on the early team leaks, particularly from Man City. I mean, for the benefit of the listeners, the FPL deadline is 3 p.m. UK on Saturday, which is it's 1 hour 30 minutes before 3 p.m. Yeah, 1 hour 30 minutes before 3 p.m. UK on Saturday. And there is a possibility that we might get some team news. And if we do, let's say, I mean, there is this remote possibility that Haaland doesn't start because City have a very short turnaround between Saturday and Tuesday before the Real Madrid game. If that happens, I mean, it's very important to be on your toes before the deadline and keep an eye out for updates, because, I mean, we have seen this before. If any news, especially regarding Haaland, breaks up, the site will crash within minutes.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be a stressful Saturday looking out for news, etc. I mean, I expect Haaland to start because, I mean, Pep has played him pretty much every single time he's been fit this season. And he's going to be my captain if that was to be the case. And if we don't hear news, then that's still going to be the case. But I think if he isn't starting, that opens up plenty of opportunities for those who are chasing.
Okay, I think, given that we just don't have the information, and I will just say quickly, I know when this happened before and the site crashed and people couldn't get their transfers done, the app on mobile devices was still working. So if the website isn't working, or to be fair, the app isn't working, it is, as Bakar says, it's going to be manic if we do get news. So just spam it, honestly. Hopefully you have good internet connection, you get lucky.
Exactly.
It's a bit of a shame that the game can become who gets lucky and gets into the servers, but it is what we got to work with, isn't
it? The annoying part is that it will be the case in game week 36 as well, when Newcastle are playing in the early kickoff, and everyone will be looking out for Isaac news, Wilson news. That's going to be annoying as well.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to leave yourself to the mercy of the service, but I suspect that might be the case, which is very, very unfortunate.
And then Game Week 38 as well, right? So it's going to be quite a hectic few deadlines left this season. Okay, so let's go with some possibilities given team news. So what I'm going to do, Bakar, I'm going to give you a situation where we get team news, a certain bit of team news, and then you've got to say how you'd react to it. So first of all, Haaland is starting, and okay, you know what? First of all, no team news.
Haaland captain.
Yeah.
Probably roll the transfer. Yeah.
Okay.
That's going to be the case.
Secondly, Haaland not starting, Alvarez starting.
Now that's a tricky part because ideally, I want to save a transfer this week, because if I end up saving a transfer this week, there's every possibility that I will end up having 2 free transfers in game week 38, which will be a nice room for me to punt, given given the high scoring nature of the games that we see on the last day. But there aren't too many opportunities left in the season to chase rank. And let's say if Haaland is not starting, then I think I would probably get Alvarez. I don't think I'll be able to resist the temptation. Simply because, I mean, Leeds are absolutely abysmal. I know they've hired Big Sam, but I mean, still, I don't think even he has it in him to just arrange that defense, because I think they're a different set of players, and I don't really think they're exactly suited to his play style.
I agree.
I see City trouncing them. And to have no City attacker if Haaland isn't starting is not really ideal. And that even opens up room for Alvarez captaincy point, especially for those who are chasing. I mean, let's say we hear news that Haaland isn't starting. I suspect most people will move to Salah. I mean, I might do so myself, but let's say if someone is chasing, then Alvarez captain will be huge. And I think that's a very good opportunity for those people to gain rank who are chasing.
I'm kind of hoping that we do get some like interesting news just to shake things up. Obviously, we've said about the servers, but it makes it more fun when we hear big players not starting. All right, so how about this? Haaland is starting, and we also know for sure that Alvarez is starting. What are you doing there?
In that case, I would be as tempted to go for Alvarez, because the main, let's say the big upside for going with Alvarez captain is to captain him, right?
Yeah.
And if Haaland is captaining, is playing as well, then obviously he'll be the default captain. So in that situation, I'm not really sure whether I'd go for Alvarez.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think let's say if De Bruyne is fit, which Pep sort of hinted might be the case, that he expects to have him back for Saturday. I think Pep would want to give some minutes to De Bruyne before the Madrid game. I think De Bruyne will start, so it'll either be Haaland or Alvarez. I don't think it will be both. I think this scenario is the possibility of this scenario is the least of the ones we've discussed.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to some other City players. Again, I'm not going to give you every single iteration of players starting or not starting. So let's just talk about players now in isolation. Jack Grealish, he's been a really interesting one. You could argue that he's been points dodging of late. He did get a return last night. Now, I think you'll agree, is in the first team, no doubt. I mean, he's played a load of minutes recently. He's in that Champions League first team. Pep has said he's massive for control, and control is something that City haven't necessarily had in a lot of Champions League games and knockout games in the past. So, in my opinion, I think he'll start against Madrid. What do you think about him this week for the Leeds fixture then?
I think out of all the City players that we've talked about, he's the most susceptible to rotation. I don't think he's going to start.
Yeah,
I am fairly confident, actually, that Grealish won't play. I might be wrong, but just basing this on the fact that Foden looked amazing when he came on. Mahrez is historically, we know that he recovers best out of all the City attackers. So I would expect Foden and Mahrez to play. And Pep very recently about Gundogan said as well that he's played a lot of minutes recently, and I want my players to be at their best possible level, the optimal level, which he believes will be the case when he rests them. Yeah. And Grealish has not had a rest for a long time. He started 13 Premier League games on the trot. And now I think he would want to give some minutes to Foden as well, now that he's back. So it just kind of seems like the perfect storm to rest Grealish. And I think that would be the case. And let's say if we hear news, and if I was a Grealish owner before deadline, I mean, if this was game week 37 or game week 38, I'd probably look at Foden or Mahrez, because obviously there's not enough time left in the season. But even if we hear news that Foden and Mahrez are starting, would you go there? Is the big question, because I don't really see a scenario where you would want to keep them over, let's say, the other Brighton mids or Salah or Fernandes or Rashford in the weeks to come, right? So essentially, if you're buying Foden, Mahrez, you're buying them for 1 week, then you're selling them again. So I I think that's a step too far, and I don't think I'd go that way. Unless we hear that Haaland is out, then Mahrez might be on penalties, which might sort of increase his upside, in which case, the appeal of captaining Mahrez might make the additional hit worth it. But let's say keeping the information we have in mind, I think Fernandes is the best possible replacement if you can get to him. Okay. Because Fernandes has a very good set of fixtures. West Ham away this week, then Wolves at home, then the double, which includes Bournemouth and Chelsea are just hopeless. And then in Game Week 38, Fulham at home. So the fixtures are as good as they get. Fernandes is playing in the number 10 role. And I mean, he's FPL gold in that position. I mean, long story short, let's just stay there. I mean, I would honestly look to get Fernandes if I had Grealish, even if it took me a hit, because it's a good move for the next 5 matches, and I'd want Fernandes over those 5 matches.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about your team now and in defence. A little bit of a selection headache there. Who are you going to be starting out of Trippier and Shaw? And then also a little mention of City defenders. Do you think getting a City defender in this week is a viable move if you don't already have a goalkeeper like you?
Let's say if you're buying someone as the second City asset, then I don't mind Diaz. I think that makes sense, because this especially makes sense for those people who have De Gea in goal, or let's say Steele in goal, because they can't essentially get to someone like an Edison.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the time to be making a goalkeeper swap anyway. But now let's say if you have Steele or De Gea, then I think Diaz is a very good route into the City defense, especially if he's your second City and not your third City, because I won't want to lock myself into 3 City at the moment. I want to have that flexibility of having 2 players before I head into Game Week 37. Because let's say even if I buy Alvarez with Haaland, I will probably sell Alvarez next week for Wilson, which will again give me the flexibility of having 3 City, the 3 optimal City, which I want before Game Week 37.
Yeah. Now, we have lost Bakar's face cam, but he's back, so don't worry, everyone. I do want to ask you a question, though. It's a super tough one, isn't it? Because you're saying that you go Alvarez and then go to a Newcastle player the week after. Let's talk about Newcastle players and the forwards in particular. Do you go there immediately now if you have, for example, a Jota in your team or a Tony in your team? Arsenal at home, not the best fixture, but they look so good at home going forward. And then how on earth do you decide between Isak and Wilson for 36? Do you get both? And
you
also,
just answered the question yourself. You just answered the question yourself.
No, I haven't. That is not my job.
I mean, again, I think there's more upside. It makes more sense to going with the Newcastle attacker. If let's say if Haaland is starting, then obviously the Alvarez punt, I think the value of that punt diminishes, in which case I'm not exactly sure whether it's worth getting Alvarez in for a move and then selling him for a Newcastle player next week. I mean, it still might be the case because we have limited time to play for.
Yeah.
But in that case, I'd be more tempted to just go with a Newcastle player right away. And as you mentioned, if you have Jota, because Klopp mentioned in the post-match press conference as well that Jota came off, had a knock previously, and then even during the game against Fulham, he picked up a knock at the back, which doesn't really bode well from going forward because he's picking up these knocks consistently. So I'm not really sure whether Jota is going to start again this week, which gives more value to picking the Newcastle attacker early, because Gabriel is injured. We don't know about his fitness. Saliba is not back. Arsenal defense is an absolute tatters.
That's a great point.
In recent times, their XGC numbers have absolutely slumped. So I think this is a good game for the Newcastle attackers. I don't own any of them, but I worry because I think they can do well against Arsenal. I expect Newcastle to win, actually.
And out of Wilson and Isak, if you had to go with one this week?
Let's say I would pick Isak because I think there's, at this point of time, with the information we have available, Isak is likely to play more minutes. And just for the sake of expected minutes, I would go with Isak. Having said that, one of the reasons why I don't like going for a Newcastle player this week is because I want to give myself an extra week of information next week. And if Wilson looks good again against Arsenal, and if we get early team news that he's starting, I would pick him over Isak because I think Wilson is a better pick. Even in the game against Southampton, Wilson had an XGI of 2.45 in just 45 minutes. Isaac had an XG of 0 in the entire game. So Wilson is the guy who's getting into those central goal scoring positions, who's looked more of a threat in recent times, while Isaac playing on the left is looking more of an assister rather than a goal scorer, which is why when both are on the field, I prefer Wilson. But it's just that right now, if I was picking one, I'm not really sure whether that would be the case. So just for expected minutes, I prefer Isak.
And in terms of penalties, do you know who's ahead in the pecking order when they're both on the pitch? Yeah?
Wilson is expected to be ahead.
Okay. All right.
Until he misses one.
As always. I don't know if you saw that the Klopp quote about Salah almost being off them and going to Fabinho or Trent. Yeah. Very interesting stuff there. That could have been a huge swing. Okay, let's talk finally about Brighton players. You, in my opinion, have the best three. Mitoma, March, Estupiñán. They just look very solid. Probably going to have them in for the majority of the season, right, given their double-doubles. McAllister owners, what are you thinking there? Should they sell to another midfielder or even another player? Because obviously with the injury to Veltman, he's dropped back in to a sitting role. What are you thinking?
I mean, Veltman started against Wolves, but then he was taken off injured. I think McAllister is more likely to play now with the injury and the fact that, the likes of Enciso, Undav, Welbeck, all those guys, Gross, they're all performing well. I think he's more likely to play in a deeper position with Caicedo. And that doesn't really bode well. He's on penalties, yes, but historically this season we've seen that whenever he's dropped into that deeper position, his XG numbers have slumped, which something which I don't like. And you don't entirely want to be depending on just penalties, right? You don't really want to put yourself in that position. You're just hoping and praying for penalties. So yes, I mean, if you have a spare transfer, I would move to Mitoma or March because you know what you're getting from them, and they're nailed. Despite the fact that the other Brighton attackers have played well, you would still expect them to start the majority of the games. Yes, they might be taken off early, but they will start the majority of the fixtures.
Okay, I think that's going to do it for this one, my friend. A lot of kind of waiting, but it could just be an absolute explosion come the deadline, given the news we might get. I have no idea how it's going to work with your final team reveal if everyone's scrambling
one thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, one thing, Jack. One thing. I mean, in my team, another conundrum that I faced this week is Trippier versus Shaw.
Yeah.
And I'd like to talk about it because it's something which is a very popular dilemma faced by plenty of managers. Currently, I'm starting Trippier because Newcastle's defensive numbers have been pretty good. Even post the restart, they're third for XGC. United's defensive numbers are all right, especially when Casemiro is playing. But I don't like the fact that Shaw is playing centre-back. Trippier with set pieces and how good Newcastle are at set plays, I just think he has more upside and more ceiling, which is why I'm going with him. And he's at home as well. He has that advantage. While Shaw, as a centre-back away, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah. And you also said, to be fair, that you do expect Newcastle to win that game. So if they still have good defensive numbers, as you say, and it's one of those where even if Arsenal score, Trippier could come away with a good little haul, and Shaw's attacking potential playing at centre back, although his bonus is higher.
Yeah, he's doing well for bonus. But away from home, I'm not entirely sure. West Ham, they have plenty of players coming back. I mean, they rested a lot of their first teamers yesterday. Yeah. So I expect them to play well. I mean, this is one of their must-win games. I mean, they're not exactly out of the relegation zone, are they? So
no.
At the moment, I'm looking at Trippier over Shaw.
Well, rest or illness, who knows? Could have been a ploy. Could have all been a ploy. Who knows? But okay. So Trippier is in. I mean, according to the tool, he does have over a point more expected this week, which, given everything you said, is probably to be expected. And team looking good, 97% Gameweek rating. I think that's going to do it for this one, mate. Guys, if you do want to check out the tool yourself, the link is down below. As always, it's going to be absolutely hectic come deadline. I do want to ask you, how do you deal with the team reveals? Because I always say, if you want to check out Bakar's final team reveal, then click on the link down below and head to the article where you'll have posted it pre-deadline. But if we're getting news, my friend, there's no time for that. Yeah. Or is there? I don't know. What do you prioritize?
I mean, I will sort of make the team reveal in the article in such a way where it's going to be flowcharts, right? If this happens, I'll do this. If this happens, I'll do this, right?
It's going to look like
because
a maths dissertation, yeah.
Exactly, because after deadline, I don't think I'll, let's say after leaks, I don't think I'll have enough time to update it, right? It's going to be crazy. It's going to be manic. So it's going to be chaotic. So I'll make sure that I cover every possible scenario there is to my team.
And I think, to be fair, we did pretty much do that in this video. Yes. You know, there are potential players that play and don't, but I think we can kind of tell the ones that are going to be the difference makers, whether they're in the team or not. And I've kind of tried to give you some probabilities there. Okay, Bakar, thank you very much as always. Best of luck in the upcoming game week. We'll see when the team reveal gets posted with that flowchart. And yeah, guys, thank you for watching as always, and we will see you with the next game week preview.